So the Miami Hurricanes went 7-5 in the 2023 season. We are all hoping, and a lot of us are expecting, the team to improve their results in 2024. How much more talented is this roster going to be?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, if there is such a thing. I'm Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We are live right now, so smash that like button if you're watching us at 11:33 a.m. here on Monday. Smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you listen to the audio version, make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics to treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at Jace Medical. That, by the way, is JASE medical.com. We bring friends today, one of the best in the business, to help me break down the talent level of this Miami roster. Because this guy speaks, he speaks a lot of facts to me. We've had these conversations, Larry Blustein from South Florida High School Sports.com and WQAM. We've had these conversations the last couple of off seasons, and you've been pretty blunt with me in terms of the Miami Hurricanes talent level. I also know this is busy season for you, Blue. So how you been?
Good. As you said, right now, just wrapped up the 2024 class, starting to finish evaluating 2025. We put out our second top 100 and whatever, top 300, I think it is, list for 2025 statewide. And then now dabbling a little bit in the 2026 and just you got to keep a couple of steps behind. And the crazy part of it is, we update our list 4 times a year, and not only have kids gotten bigger and faster, but they've changed schools. So yes. we have to kind of keep up. There's been a high school portal in the state of Florida going on for a long time, and it's kind of ramping up now.
I want to start with you on a player that's been a hot topic for the last couple of days, and that's Talia Tagovailoa. The younger brother of Tua Tagovailoa. He has been the starting quarterback at the Maryland Terrapins Big Ten program, starting quarterback for the last 4 years, Blue. And during these past 4 years, Talia Tagovailoa has become the all-time Big Ten leading passer. Of course, the all-time Maryland leading passer. He led the Big Ten with over 3,300 yards passing this past season. And yet, a lot like older brother, he's very polarizing. Anytime I bring up Talia, some Miami fans are like, yeah, bring him in. Others are like, keep that kid far away. Too many interceptions. And then also, Blue, I don't know if you were going through the same thing last night. And, this is not Locked On Dolphins. Kyle Krabs does a good enough job with that show. But, I cheer for the Dolphins. I'm watching the Dolphins last night getting beaten by Buffalo. Tua threw a couple of costly interceptions in that game. The Miami Hurricanes fan base is so weird. I get a bunch of text messages and social media mentions from people after Tua throws interceptions that are like, yeah, keep that younger brother far, far away from here. It's like, you're blaming Talia for Tua's interceptions yesterday. So I want to ask you, Blue, Talia Tagovailoa, obviously not a perfect quarterback. If he was, he'd be, definitely wanted to go to the NFL right now. But he does have 4 years of Big Ten experience. There's nothing he hasn't seen from an opposing defense, right? I feel like he can elevate the floor and ceiling of your quarterback room for 1 year. A lot of Miami fans are like, nah, keep this guy away. Let's just roll with Ja'Carri Brown or Emory Williams. And I like Miami's young quarterbacks, Blue. I just think it would be important to add somebody with experience. So I would love your take on Talia Tagovailoa. If he's able to get that extra year of eligibility, would it be worthwhile for Miami to try to bring him in?
Yeah, of course it would be. How can you not want to have a guy with that experience, just not only to help this team, kind of turn the corner a little bit, but mentor, as you mentioned, Ja'Carri and Emory. And because I'm like you, all these people are quick to want to get rid of everybody all the time. And, Ja'Carri's this and he's not this. And I don't agree. I think that if you develop, if you keep looking for other quarterbacks to bring in and not develop the guys you have, of course they're not going to be as good, as you should. But I think, having him aboard, the guy's 23 years old, 24 almost now. He's got that maturity about him. He's got experience. You play in the Big Ten. Sure, you'd be crazy not to bring somebody in like that.
Yeah. And okay, would there be any cons, Blue? Because I look at what Miami's been trying to do in the transfer quarterback market. The misses have been well publicized, right? With Cam Ward deciding to go to the NFL, Will Howard deciding to go to Ohio State. Those were really the top targets Miami was looking at, and they're both graduate transfers looking to play just one more year, because I think ideally Mario Cristobal and Shannon Dawson, they do like the young quarterbacks that they have. I'll also mention Judd Anderson coming in as a true freshman, but between the three of them, between Judd, who's not played a lick, and Emery, who started a couple games, and JB, who started a handful of games, the three of them do not even have double-digit combined starts between the three of them. So bring in somebody for a year, and then you're ready, hopefully, to pass the torch to one of these younger players in 2025. Would there be any cons to their development if you bring in a one-year graduate guy?
No, it's all positive. They're going to be around somebody who's been there, done that, as you said. And I laugh when, fans are fans, and obviously they're going to make crazy comments. How could you let out things on him that his brother's doing, and vice versa? So it's all positive to bring in somebody like that. And not only that, remember, we're in the portal era. So if things don't work out next year, then you'll have another quarterback from somewhere else coming in the year after. So it's going to be an endless loop. And but let's get a guy who's a proven guy at a Big Ten level. Come on. This isn't like you're not bringing him in, and I'm not going to take any shots, but you're not bringing him in from UAlbany. So, that's
okay.
You have to take into consideration that this guy's been at the wars. Maryland's an upper, getting much, much better. Coach Locke has done a tremendous job. They have development at that school. And
let me mention something else. If this changes any Miami fans' opinions, Talia Tagovailoa was the leading passer in the Big Ten last year. And remember who his offensive coordinator was. He did that under Josh Gaddis. You're telling me this young man, he threw for 3,300 yards with Josh Gaddis calling his plays. Anybody else calling plays, he would have thrown for 5,000 yards, Blue. People need to remember that.
Yeah, wasn't Dan Enos the OC before him, though?
Yeah.
So it's like old home week. I'm all positive about it. You get somebody like that, and it's a win-win. I don't care what anybody says, and especially, because even like a Will Howard or any of those guys, they're not. If they were so great in what they're doing, they would have stayed right where they're at. There's always going to be flaws in everybody else, and the only flaw probably with to his brother is the fact that he may. I don't know if he's going to get the NCAA approval, but you would think so. But because, if you remember a while back, I think it was the kid from Bishop Gorman that played here. I can't think of his name. Yeah, Tate Martell. He got assistance from Ohio State when they were going through that. So I think that Alabama's going to, from what I heard, is Alabama and Maryland are both, in his corner to try to get, give him another opportunity to play. And I think that, he would be great, because what he do is he's somebody with the experience. He's going to be here. He understands a lot of things. He's seen a lot of coverages in his time, and he's a smart guy, and I think having him here, but I am so in the corner of, and Emory Williams and also Ja'Cory Brown, to where all these people want to get rid of all this stuff when you got to develop these guys instead of trying to get rid of them, develop them. Miami took them in for a reason. Because they could play. And I talked to a lot of coaches that are at the Power 5 level, and also just Division I type of coaches that agree with what I'm saying about both Emory and Ja'Cory. Instead of keep finding ways to get rid of them, why don't you develop them? I mean, they both have talent. They're both extremely, intelligent guys. So that's a school I'm in. Bring him in for this year. And I mean, listen, it doesn't mean he's going to start all the time. Maybe, these guys it'll light enough fire during the spring and into the summer where they're going to elevate their game to the point that, because as well as I do, and especially in college football, that all of a sudden you have a 385-yard game, throw for 5 touchdowns. Look, here's a perfect example. USC. USC went out of the market just because of what their quarterback did in a bowl game. Mm-hmm. So that just shows you. Now they go into the 24 season thinking, hey, we got a dude. I mean, we got a guy that's going to throw for 5-6 touchdowns a game. And that could happen very easily with either Jacurri or obviously with any Judd or in the 2025 class with another stud that they got coming in. So, yeah, I think that's a moot point. You get him in any way you can get him, and I think it's going to be a win-win, no matter what anybody says.
Sure. And we got so much more to talk about here with Larry Blustein, because we just had some Miami signees really stand out in the Under Armour All-American game and in the All-American Bowl. Everyone's talking about Marquise Lightfoot. Everyone's talking about Booker Pickett Jr. Jason Taylor is going to have a really fun job for the next couple of years at Miami. I also want to ask Blue about the overall talent level, because, yes, Miami did lose some key players to the NFL draft, a couple key players in the transfer portal. Is this roster upgrading? And I also have to talk to Blue, because he slid a little shot at UAlbany, kind of under the radar there, but I do want to get his take on Reese Poffenbarger when we come back. So you know what that means, guys? We are only getting started. We have so much left to talk about with Larry Blustein joining us on this all-new episode of Locked On Canes. And I am only getting started with FanDuel. I did a really good job betting NFL games over the weekend. Not to toot my own horn, but I had a lot of fun at FanDuel. And yes, the NFL regular season has wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action for the postseason, for the national championship game in college football. America's #1 sports book, that's FanDuel. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose that first bet. The app is so easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. I actually had in a parlay Josh Allen and Tua Tagovailoa to both throw interceptions in the game, and I'm rolling in money today, my friends. You can take props like that at FanDuel. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're available free on YouTube. Locked On has launched their first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, Blue, when you were talking about Talia Tagovailoa having played the last 4 years at Maryland, and he started his career at Alabama, let's not forget. So he was coached by Nick Saban and company for a year. You mentioned it's not like he'd be coming from UAlbany. Well, Miami is apparently looking at a quarterback who looks great on tape, by the way, from Albany, and that's Reese Poffenbarger. So, Blue, do you have this kid shows a lot on tape, Blue, against FCS competition, granted, but what do you think about Reese Poffenbarger as a possible Miami option at quarterback?
Well, I kind of remember Reese when he was coming out of high school in Maryland, and he didn't get a lot of interest because he was only 5'11". I think he's only 6.5 now. He's not very big. No. He's got a great arm, obviously, very strong arm. I remember when he started out at Old Dominion and didn't play, and then made his move to Albany. He's okay. He's serviceable guy. Nowhere near Tagovailoa's brother. I mean, it's just it's apples oranges there. The guy makes plays upfield. Doesn't have great footwork, but he throws the ball. He throws the ball pretty well. Throws good long balls, but again, you're looking at a program in New Albany that doesn't have anywhere near the talent that a lot of these programs have. And when you take a look at who they're going to be facing and you look at FSU and schools like that, this is a whole different ballgame. I mean, you talk about deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
I mean, this is he really hasn't proven himself at a higher level. Yeah. Last year, I think I saw him against Baylor, I believe it was.
Yes. Yeah.
And they got crushed. And,
he did make Baylor, a couple big time throws in that game, but yeah,
but Baylor also put in third and fourth teamers too by the time, and listen, having anybody come in here and compete is really, really good. I mean, and I'm not going to take the kid apart, but in all honesty, the two guys you have right now are light years ahead of him. Ja'Carri Brown is a big-time player. I don't think these people understand. The only thing he's lacking right now is the experience, and the same thing with Emory. I mean, those guys are come on, let's be realistic. I mean, instead of just pulling guys' names out of the hat and just because you watch him throw, yeah, I'm sure he'd come in and do pretty well, but he's nowhere near with the two guys that you already have on hand. If you're going to make a move, you make it with a veteran guy like we talked about, and then, let those two guys work under him, because I'm telling you, there's a reason. Frank Ponce and I talk about it. There was a reason why Emory Williams, came to Miami and how coveted he was. I mean, there's a reason why the guy's making throws without really, really being, worked as the number one. I mean, he worked as a number one. Look at Ja'Carri, didn't even work as a number one until the bowl game. So, yeah, give the guys that you recruited, an opportunity to develop. Listen, if they do land Reese and he comes down here, hey, good for them, but I don't think he's the answer. Definitely not the answer.
Yeah. So let's talk big picture for Miami's roster, Blue, because you were the one 2 years ago who told me 2022 that roster just wasn't good. Then you told me 2023 roster's better, but you were thinking, like a lot of us were thinking 8 or 9 wins this past year. Blue was more on the 6 or 7 win tip, and Miami ended up winning 7 games. So I think about some of the important players who have left, Blue. Miami's losing some guys early to the NFL: Cam Kinchens, James Williams, Leonard Taylor, Matt Lee. Colby Young goes to Georgia in the transfer portal. Tyler Van Dyke, of course, goes to Wisconsin in the transfer portal. Miami has brought in a couple of defensive tackles like CJ Clark and Marley Cook in the portal. They have brought in Matt Lee's replacement, Zach Carpenter, who I hope is, if he's like 90% as good as Matt Lee was last year, Miami should be in really good shape on the offensive line. Savion Riley at safety. Miami brings in a top 5 recruiting class of 2024. So you look at this roster, Blue, I'm sure you spent a lot of time studying it. Talent-wise, is Miami better in 2024 than 2023, even before adding a quarterback? And how much better do you think that they are depth-wise?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, too. You got the whole month of January and into February to continue to add kids out of the portal. I mean, or kids who want to transfer. You've got a lot of talent. You still have another signing day, maybe, to get a couple of kids to flip that are right now on the line. As far as 2 years ago, shoot, it's not even close. Miami's so much more talented. They don't have the experience in a lot of positions, but that they have the talent. And you know what? You take a look at a lot of these guys. Especially the incoming guy. And I know you got close with like guys like Judd and people over there. I mean, there's a reason why you recruit these guys, because of their potential. And you know what? They come aboard and they even start reaching any type of potential. You're going to say, hey, oh, yeah, that's why. Yeah, these guys are big-time kids that they're recruiting. Miami's gotten to that level now, especially with Mario as a recruiter. They're not settling for those guys that would probably go to FAU, FIU. And I'm not taking any shots at those schools, but you can't come down to Miami, Old Dominion, and FAU. You just can't. It's got to be Miami, Alabama, Miami, Ohio State, Miami, FSU. And that's the only way you progress. And that's what we're seeing with Miami now. Miami's getting kids. I mean, look at Scott. Come on. Oh my God. That guy's a premier player, one of the premier players in the country, and Miami signed him. Yeah. And that's the thing that I'm saying. Miami's not fooling around now. I mean, this is, are they a great team? No. Are they an outstanding program? No, but they're getting there. And that's the thing, if people understand, and I think that, the fan base, sometimes gets disillusioned about some of the things, but you got to understand, Miami was really building this program from total scratch. And if you don't understand it, they made 60 roster moves in the last 2 years. That's like, if you're a poker fan, that's like having a hand with an ace and throwing the 4 cards out and just keeping the ace to see what you get, the rest of the way. And that's really what Miami was under. And as well as I do that you watch Mario Cristobal, just what he's done in the past. And people are picking on him as a coach and, he's not a game day coach and he's not. Come on. I mean, let's give everybody an opportunity, because you have a really good coaching staff. They've shown it. They're about developing, which is the reason why you go get a Marcus Lightfoot or a guy like that, because these guys understand.
Yeah, Larry Blustein is with us, 560 WQAM. There's a few specific players I want to ask Blue about when we come back. We got a great question from one of our Locked On Canes insiders about some of Miami's less heralded defensive backs. They have some 3-star defensive backs coming in as class of 2024 signees. Blue mentioned the name Justin Scott. I want to get Blue's take on how fast he can get on the field, if he can be this year's version of Ruben Bain, perhaps. Marquise, Lightfoot, and Booker Pickett Jr. just had awesome performances in all-star games last week. My friends, we are only getting started here. We're not done yet. You want to keep it locked right here to this all-new live episode, so smash that like button of Locked On Canes. You guys need to be aware of what's going on at Jase Medical. They're helping save lives out there. I know we come to sports to escape conversations like this, but indulge me here for a moment. According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. It's scary, right? I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if my wife or my son got sick while a supply chain issue is going on that may keep them from getting life-saving medications they need. Thankfully, we're going to be okay, and so will you, because of Jase Medical. The Jase case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others, because this stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com and complete your physician encounter. It's going to be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order at Jase Medical. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. Guys, if you want to become a Locked On Canes insider, you get text messages directly from my phone to yours and vice versa. One-on-one questions, breaking news, recruiting, and transfer portal scoops. Click the link in the show description below and become a Locked On Canes insider. You can try it free for 14 days. And then if you like it, after 2 weeks, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. We give you a lot of added value on there. And Blue, I got a question from one of our Locked On Canes insiders. When I mentioned Larry Blustein is coming on today, he wants me to ask you about the development in their senior years of high school from what he refers to as the 3-star brigade in the defensive secondary, like Ryan Mack, O.J. Frederick, and Dylan Day. Now, Mack, I saw Mack have a great Under Armour game. He was a lockdown corner. Dylan Day is like the quietest guy in Miami's recruiting class. He doesn't talk a whole lot, not very much on social media. O.J. Frederick, another big-time local kid. What have you seen, and what do you expect out of those 3?
Well, Ryan not only had an outstanding Under Armour game, but he had a great week. And he was going up against some of the premier receivers in the country who were in the game. And certainly a lot of, I mean, come on, look at his bloodlines. Obviously, he's a Kane legacy, somebody who's done some tremendous things over the last couple of years. He's emerged as a really good safety. He's got really loose hips, so he covers extremely well, as you know, and that's important too, because he's got those cover skills, but also that attitude to play safety. The other kid, Romanus Frederick, O.J. Frederick, who came from Deerfield, played at St. Thomas last year. Another one of those guys, a safety, bigger body, than a lot of people, would give him credit for. he's over 6'6.5", 180, really good nose for the football. The only thing lacking him and separating him from, maybe making impact at the next level is experience, and getting an opportunity to, because the game is going to speed up in a major way. So he has to keep up with it. And I think the big key of the 3 stars is the kid Dylan Day. He comes from a tremendous program in Southern Lab out of Baton Rouge. He's played against some really, really good football players. A lot of guys that I know in that area talk nothing but great things for him. They thought that he would end up at LSU down the, when he first started out. He was one of he's almost been committed for like 10 months, to Miami. And then he signed on National Signing Day, a kid who's, like I said, he's agile. He's not the biggest guy. He's 5'11". He weighs maybe in the 165, 170 range, another safety, which Miami's going to need. I mean, especially with 2 guys like Williams and Kinchens, departed, you're going to need somebody like that. So I think all 3 of them, they're going to be in the learning process, but all 3 have really good talent, and they all, lend a different thing to the game. And I think they're, all 3 of them are going to be surprising.
Let me air out just a couple of concerns that I have with the defensive backfield. We covered a lot over the last week or so on this show when Antoine Jackson, who I'm sure you covered him at high school at Dillard, he signed with Miami last year, left Miami's class to join ECU, hit the transfer portal. My understanding was, and listen, I'm not going to pretend I'm smarter than the coaching staff. For whatever reason, he didn't get an offer, whether it be the numbers game, because Miami is very tight on scholarships, or perhaps they didn't want to give, another chance to a guy who already flaked on them once. I don't know how much that had to do with it. But Miami didn't go after Antoine Jackson, who ends up committing to UCF. Not that this was necessarily a huge loss, but Blue, with Miami, losing Devontae Brown, who leaves in the transfer portal, he commits to Florida State. I view that as a chess move by Florida State. I don't know how much they really wanted Devontae Brown, but Florida State's going to make another run at Damari Brown because the transfer portal opens back up in a few months, and I'm sure Mike Norvell is going to try to lure Damari to Tallahassee with his older brother. So I really hope Miami can hold on to Damari Brown because you did lose some important players and some important depth in that defensive backfield, Blue.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. And you take a look at, the situation with Antoine, and, you're probably right. Miami's trying to build a program with a lot of positives around it, people who want to be there. And maybe they looked, at it and say, you know what, this, especially with the portal the way it is, he could leave next year. We want to try to build a little bit more of a base. So, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the kid, his talent, or what type of guy he is. I'm just thinking that, Miami can't, they got to think outside of the box, and they have enough experience in knowing that, you can't have somebody who doesn't want to be here around, like pulling teeth, and they don't need that. They need kids who want to be, Hurricanes from the beginning and want to stay that way. I mean, in this day and age, though, nothing's for sure. And, I said this on a bunch of shows on National Signing Day, that not only do you try to recruit the next class coming in, but you got to recruit your own team to stay.
Yes.
And that's the toughest part of the whole thing. And what are you going to do? I mean, you can only do what you could do. You can't force somebody to stay, but that would be, I think, by doing that. And if he gets disgruntled again, he'll leave again. And I'm not saying that he would, but I think that's in the back of everybody's mind. And only because of the fact that what I just mentioned about having to recruit your own class to stay, there's no guarantee that next year you're going to have a Reuben Bain or everybody else. You got to recruit them to stay, make it a positive environment. And I think by bringing in help the way they have, that's a definite step in the right direction.
A few more incoming true freshmen I want to talk about. Booker Pickett dominated the Under Armour game from the edge, 2.5 sacks. Marquise Lightfoot dominated the All-American Bowl, 2 sacks in that game. Justin Scott also looked really good, and he did throughout the week of practice at the All-American Bowl as well. I'm looking potentially year one impact, Blue, and I'll throw Cole McConaughey into the mix as well, the Alabama sack leader last year. I mean, how much of a difference is true freshmen can guys like that make?
Well, Scott's obviously first man out of the bullpen because of the fact that he's a big, strong, physical guy who dominates up front. He gets it. He's well coached. He came here for a reason. He didn't come here to just observe. He came here to be part, just like Bain did last year. So I think he would be one of those guys, along with Lightfoot and Pickett. And if you know the background of Pickett, he's a legacy to the University of Miami. I covered his dad in high school. An outstanding football talent, and he did a lot of really, really good and positive things. And I think his son has followed in a lot of the footsteps. I saw him last year at the Rivals camp, and he was talking about the very same thing, about how his son was, coming along and being a lot like him as far as his love for the game. Lightfoot is an absolute crazy talented guy that that will benefit probably more than he and Wayne, probably more so than anybody, by having a Jason Taylor, because of the fact that the way they are. And you look at Lightfoot, and he's a lot like Jason Taylor when he came out. Tall, rangy, long arms, somebody who's not 260 pounds, but a thinner version, and a guy who's relies on his instincts and athleticism. So I think those guys right there are going to make a huge input. And you mentioned McConaughey. You got to remember, he came out of a pretty good football region. I mean, and he really stepped up. I think, I don't know about the stars. I don't really judge stars, but I judge the talent. And I'll tell you what, you put some film in and watch that guy. His motor never stops. He's quick. His first step is nuts. He overmatches almost everybody he goes against, and you're going to see him. He's going to start emerging, and people are going to be talking, and then sooner or later, all these guys are going to say, he's a 3-star? Yeah, you see, so that, I don't want to get into the validity of the star rating. I just don't understand them in a lot of ways. But I think it comes down to a popularity contest now, because if a kid, if a website or a certain fan website, likes Ohio State, if a kid goes from, to Ohio State, he takes that 3-star and goes to a 4-star. And you see, I just think it's a popularity contest. But the McConaughey kid, I think he may be one of the biggest surprises, only because of the fact that no one knew a lot about him. But we watched a lot of film on him. I traced back, talked to some people in that area, and they said, you look at his schedule that he played against. He played against some high level kids, and he's always come out real well. Again, there's a guy that probably wasn't as recruited as well as he should have been.
Yeah. Well, awesome insight. Larry Blustein is an invaluable resource here on this show and on his own show, Blue, on 560 WQAM. Thursday night, you're on this week. Let the people know when.
Yeah, well, last week we got a huge show in 3 hours. We had, Coach Mack from FIU came on. We're going to have Mario on in the coming weeks, probably leading up to the second National Signing Day. We'll be on at 6 to 7 30 this coming week as a lead-in, shorter show, but you know what I mean, it only helps us gain some momentum for the because we're sharing time with the Heat and the Panthers, and obviously the Panthers doing extremely well, so everybody wants to kind of focus in on them. So yeah, it's this week, and you can catch us on our Prep Red Zone Florida website, and I'm telling you, and I not just because we do stuff, but there's no other Florida high school or recruiting website that comes close as far as information. Every single day, we just put out our updated 2025 rankings of 560 kids throughout the state of Florida. Obviously, upper echelon kids. We had to take our first, our number one player in the state and move him out because he's now enrolled at the University of Miami. That's Armando Blunt for 2025. But we moved in, another Pickett who goes to that number one spot, DJ, a safety kid out of Tampa Wharton, and Zephyr Hills too. Those it's where the father went. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and like you said, we get an opportunity every day. We got, if you're interested in Dayton Broward coverage, we have LarryBlustein.com. We just got done doing the couple of the All-Star games over the last few weeks. Checked out all the kids from the Dade Broward area that went to all the All-Star games. So yeah, it's a valuable resource. If you love recruiting, we're on top of it. We go to everything, and that's important.
One of the best resources out there. Make sure you follow Blue on Twitter or on X at Larry Blustein. Follow our show at Locked On Canes. Awesome stuff as always. Thank you guys so much for being here, for making us your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.